Agreed. Now, we forgot about two things.
Oh.
I don't know how we're going to add this back in, so hopefully you can figure this out.
Hey there, it's Jamie
And Jennifer
from the Big Pink Chair, and we're back with another YouTube video for you. Today we're talking all about the selling process. If this is your first time here,
welcome, and please subscribe below. We're going to be taking it step by step in terms of what to do to start, and then how to wrap it all up and get yourself a deal and move to the next home or on to the next stage of your experience. So I think we'll talk step one, get a realtor.
this one and that one together.
The goal obviously is that the realtor can help you make your plan. I know a lot of people are looking at, or thinking about getting their home on the market and often don't know where to start. And so they think and think and think and they take actions that maybe they don't need to take. So the goal of enlisting a realtor early on is to make sure that we can make it easy, step by step, and try and make it as seamless as we can without a lot of stress.
Absolutely. I think the next step after you've hired somebody or you've chosen somebody, sometimes people decide to interview a few people and get a choice of who is going to be the right fit for them. And once you've decided, it's contract time. So for us here in Alberta, that's, what are we now, a 5-page contract?
Yep. And
we're going to explain that all to you, and it's going to outline basically our fiduciary obligations to you and make sure that we're all on the same page together.
Your job of the agent, as I like to say, is sort of the trusted advisor. Our job is to help you get from point A to point B, walk you through all of the steps in that, and ultimately that's what the paperwork does. It sort of talks from start to finish what to expect.
Absolutely. Yep. The third step is?
I would say at that stage, we would talk about staging your home, getting everything ready to put it on the market, either decluttering or adding things to the home, or just preparing it so that the camera sees your home in the best possible light, because currently probably 95% of people are buying online before they ever walk through the door. So they've made a sort of a mental decision.
They fall in love with it, right?
Exactly, online. So the job of the realtor is to pick the top pictures that really speaks of what your home offers, and we need to get your place ready for that. So staging is by far the most important step.
And you're going to find different realtors offer different things. I know for Jennifer and I, we offer varied amounts of staging depending on our clients. Some people, you walk into their house and you think, done, get the camera, get the photographer. Other people,
you need a little more help.
It's a little more help. So check with your real estate agent. Make sure that's one of the questions when you interview that you're asking. What do they offer and how much will they help you out with that specific task?
That's actually really important, especially in the Calgary market right now, because I think our philosophy currently is that, it's a tough market. Unless you put your best foot forward, you're really wasting your time. So as we see it, making your home shine, stepping in the door, walking through, getting that feeling of like, oh, I'm home. It's the most important thing we can do, bar none, I think. So it's really important. Best foot forward. Price is king, obviously. And those photos are really important on MLS. So we have to do the proper job of getting prepared.
If you don't have good photos on MLS, you might as well
forget about it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Or sell it for nothing.
Cheap.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That's our opinion. I think then step number 4, we are. That was good. We would say we would hire the photo and measurement company. Not everybody does that. Again, some realtors have different philosophies. Jamie and I think fairly strongly that having awesome photos is the key to getting your place sold. So we hire a couple of different photography companies, the ones we think do the best job for each home. Some homes need different things. Some need, photos at night. Some need photos during the day. Some, depending on what we need, we'll make plans for that. So we hire the photo company and the measurement company to come in and get your home ready for us to put it on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And the measurements are just, you may not know, but one of the things that we found, or our Calgary Real Estate Board, or it's Alberta, right, found is that most people, a lot of the lawsuits that were actually happening were due to measurements. And so a few years ago, they enacted a residential standards, and we all have to adhere to that. And for us, we just feel like hiring a professional to do that and alleviate it and make sure it's done perfectly and get rid of all of the risk on us and on you is the best thing
Smart
to do.
deal. One of the things about measurements, and I think this is really interesting, again, if you're coming from the Calgary market, this will intrigue you. Prior to, I guess, 2016, it was really up to whoever built your home to determine the measurements. Or if your realtor was great, which some of them were, on it, and some didn't think it was important, they would measure your home. But all the measurements were not created equal. They were looked at separately. So in 2016, RECA, I believe it was it? Or was it Area? Anyway, they put together sort of a set of standards for realtors to adhere to. So currently on the market, as a realtor, we have to show that we have measured your homes according to their standards, which is really good because it makes everything equal. So that's really important to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The next step after photos and measurements is where kind of ball comes in our court and we get it up on the market for you. And that means we have some inputting doing. You might hear from us asking like funny questions about taxes and what kind of carpets and tiles and all the kinds of things that go into your house. And some of the key marketing features such as a write-up. So
Absolutely.
we have to write that up. It's important to know from you, why did you buy your house? I mean, that's going to be what sells it to the next person. The next buyer is going to love it for the exact same reasons you did. So that's something that your realtor should be asking you is, tell me the top 5 reasons that you're in love with your home.
I think that's absolutely right. I think the other thing, just to be fair to realtors, we have clients who love a long write-up, and one of the challenges we have is 1,000 characters. We are allowed to describe your home in 1,000 characters, including spaces.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. We want to cut to the chase. We want to sell your home in 1,000 characters or less. So we've got to really consider that. Everything else gets added to the details of the listing. So those are important, obviously, but they're not always included in the write-up. So that's important.
Absolutely. Then after we've got it on the market, it's
live.
Long haul, short haul.
Yeah.
That's going to depend on where you live and what's going on with your market. Again, if you've enlisted a realtor already, they're going to update you. They are going to have given you your expectations of, hey, we're going to be on the market and it's going to be gone in 2 weeks. That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be on there for 90 to 120 days or more. Don't be surprised. Just make sure you've really checked in with your realtor and set that expectation, because as long as you know going into it, hopefully you won't be panicking, really is what it boils down to.
For a lot of clients, one of the things that happens, and this is actually why price is so important. So when you talk to your realtors initially and you're interviewing, people are going to be talking about how to come up with price. And I think for me, my philosophy about pricing your home is you have to be in the sweet spot. If you're overpriced, what ends up happening is that you miss the first momentum of the market. And when your house goes on the MLS for the first time, usually within the first 10 days is when you get the real action, when you get the real buyers, the ones who've been waiting for the perfect house to show up. And if you are overpriced and thinking you're testing the market, the reality is that actually works against you every time. We haven't actually, I think, experienced anything other than that. If you are overpriced, you need to readjust as soon as you possibly can.
Wholeheartedly. Unless you're in a market that's like crazy booming and you can kind of push it, but I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times you're not in that kind of market. I think Calgary in the last 15 years has been in that place maybe once.
Yeah, probably that's right. So sweet spot.
Maybe twice.
We put it on the market, obviously. If we've priced it well, you'll get lots of activity and hopefully lots of, interest. Again, not every market shows up that way, but that's our goal. Our hope is that you get lots of activity right away. That's pretty typical no matter what happens on the market. You'll get lots of activity for the first 2 weeks, and then it kind of dies off, and people get a little freaked out by that, I think. The job of your real estate agent is to be working in the background to try and figure out how to tweak what we've got going on. Do we change the marketing we're doing? Do we send out a new marketing piece? Do we have an open house? Do we do a realtor caravan? That is basically where people bring, let's say, 8 to 10 realtors through your home. We all do a little caravan of the area. We look at each other's listings and we critique it, and that helps us move on to the next step. But that's the job of the realtor, to go through in the back end and make sure that if the house isn't sold right away, that we keep addressing it on a regular basis. And yeah, there's going to be some pushback on price once in a while, but often what we're doing in the background is actually everything but price first.
And I think, again, it comes down to that, the expectation. understanding that if your realtor's done a really good job with you staging your home and getting beautiful photographs, and they've done all the legwork and all the things that really should sell your home, and then all of a sudden you have, the first couple of weeks on the market, you have 10 plus showings and you're not getting an offer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the reality is it probably is your price.
Yeah, that's right.
It's probably going to be your price. So I think there's, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
come to Jesus? I don't know. I don't know what she's saying.
But like the perception of real estate agents that all they want to do is beat you up on your price, beat you up on your price. And I think it's because ultimately if we have done our job and we're getting people through the door and that house is just not selling, then there's just unfortunately nothing left there. And so make sure that you really understand. I mean, if your realtor hasn't done anything and your photos look like junk, well,
then you've got the wrong realtor.
That's a different conversation to have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Ultimately, if you've done the right job and you've priced it well to begin with, you should be seeing activity and you should be getting questions. Yeah. If the price is off, you will notice it in your traffic and you will feel that right away.
Yeah.
So Seth, I think it's 5. Would be offer, probably. I would say when an offer comes through, what can you expect?
Yeah, what can you expect? So typically the offer will be emailed in this day and age to the realtor, your realtor, and they will go through it and send it to you and then have a conversation with you about what you're seeing. So explaining the contract to you, explaining price, possession terms, because there's more to negotiate than just price. I think a lot of it times it does boil down to that, but it's not always the main concern. Sometimes people are willing to pay a little bit more if you're willing to give on possession or something like that.
Or items in the home, right? Sometimes it comes down to a piece of furniture, which happened a couple of times for us, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So you get all that, we'll go through it with you, and then we decide there's a couple different options. Do we want a counter offer? Do we want to reject the offer? Or do we want to accept it? I still haven't accepted an offer.
Not on the first time.
But
if you do, it must be full price, way over ask.
If you're in multiple offers, you might see something like that. But otherwise, you're typically negotiating, and that's where we come in.
Absolutely. Another thing, actually, as a little tip, I think this is important, is before you ever get to the point where you have an offer to purchase as the seller, I recommend highly that you go through a contract when you're not stressed, because one of the challenges I find is when you actually receive an offer, usually things happen very quick and fast and you're expected to make decisions. I like the idea of you having sat down, looked through the offer, come up with any questions that you might have had prior to that, so that when an offer arrives, there's no surprises. There's nothing that's coming out of left field. That way too, you're a little bit calmer when it comes down to the negotiations and you've thought things through about what you're prepared to do and not.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you're back to the negotiations. Typically your offer, the first one, and leasing the Calgary market currently, people are going to test it out, see how motivated you are. So you're probably going to get a low ball. That's very normal. Your realtor hopefully has calm head and keeps you calm and says, don't worry, that's just a starting point. Let's talk.
I always like to say to them, hey, when we're buying your house, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side
100%.
for you. And we're going to see how desperate people are. And that's all they're doing. So don't take it personally and let's counter and move on.
I agree with that. It's a transaction. Try not to, if you can, get your feelings involved, because often that's where you make mistakes, is when you have feelings about things that are not business related, and this is totally a business transaction. So we're going to look at the price, the possession, all the details, and then we'll come up with a counter, and it will be our job to go back with the other realtor and have a communication about that.
And at the end of the day, you're only going to take the price that you're going to take, and the buyer is only going to pay the price they're willing to pay.
That's right.
So we can't always make something happen, but usually you can get a win-win.
Absolutely.
Usually.
Yeah.
Then we have an accepted offer. Yay!
At that point, usually every offer has some kind of a condition in it, be it a home inspection or a mortgage approval. Sometimes with mortgage approvals, the buyer is going to request that they come back maybe with an appraisal company. Often, in most cases, I think in Calgary, we're going to bring a home inspector in, and they will take some time in your home being the buyer, will take some time in your home with the home inspector to go through looking for what we call latent defects. So that that would be things that you cannot see with the naked eye, which means the inspector's going to take his little tester to make sure that there's no cracks in your foundation, to make sure there's no heat loss that is unexplained, to look at your windows, to look at your roof. What are some others?
Yeah, leaks. And yeah, just usually it's the big ticket items.
Yeah.
Occasionally we get people that want small ticket
That's
items.
right.
I mean, we can't predict what's going to come back, but typically it's the big things that we're watching out for.
That's right. When we are getting your home on the market, if you are living in a condo, ultimately your real estate agent is responsible for making sure that all of your condo documents are ready to give to the buyer. And typically when the buyer makes an offer, they expect those documents within 24 to 48 hours, and they have to be up to date within 6 months. So your job is up front to get those items collected if you're in a condo. If you're in a single family home, however, you're going to be expected to get what's called a real property report, RPR. And Jamie, you tell them about the RPR because I think you're better at that.
The RPR is a survey of the land. So you're going to have, it's going to be on a piece of paper. You should have gotten one when you purchased your home originally from your lawyer. Most lawyers nowadays in Calgary and area anyway are wanting a new one or an updated one done if it's within 10 years. But some lawyers will even push you that they just want a new one every single time. So make sure you've discussed it with your real estate agent. You're going to go out. It's going to include things like your deck, a shed, any concrete in-ground features, fences. And if you've changed anything since you've moved into your home, chances are you're going to need a new one. And it's got a pretty penny. It's somewhere between
$850 right now and $1,000, I think, in Alberta.
And if you have to get a rush, then it's tacked on there, and you have to get compliance with your city. So if you don't get it done before you got a sale, you can run into issues, and if you don't have compliance, it can hold up the deal, and that is the number one reason deals get held up.
I think so.
Yep, for sure.
So right now, real property reports are basically that survey. The city stamps it saying that everything you did on your property either was in compliance or is been made aware of, and they've accepted that. So the goal is when the house closes, we have to give that to the buyer. It is by law expected, and it has to be compliant. So we need to get that done as soon as possible. So once those appointments have had their time, it would either be something that was renegotiated if there was something they found, or they would decide to waive their conditions and move forward with a final acceptance, meaning you have a firm sale, meaning you are moving.
Yay! This is the goal that we're always reaching for. It's hard sometimes. People get really, really excited at your offer stage. You get an accepted offer, and then if something falls apart with financing or home inspection and then the deal falls apart, it's absolutely devastating. So when you get that accepted offer, try not to be excited, but don't run away. Don't go buy something else or pretend like it's all done. There's still that little blip to get through.
Absolutely.
So once we've got that firm deal, we are moving towards your possession date, and really all that's left for you to do is to start packing your house and getting ready and making your plans for the next side of things.
So lawyer, yes, the most important thing obviously is to get in touch with a lawyer as soon as your deal is firm. Maybe even check on who you want to use prior to the firming so that we know as realtors where to send the information, because if it happens to be a very quick closing, which we do get, we need to make sure the paperwork is there like as soon as possible. So ultimately it's important for us to have that information right away. Yeah. So that would be that.
And that's really all. Like, honestly, once your deal is firm, it's packing up your house and going to the lawyer. I think a lot of people kind of panic at that. Well, now what? Like I do with my clients anyway. They feel like there's so much more that needs to happen, and
it's
there's
pretty
not.
simple.
It's pretty simple. It's just getting ready to move out. I mean, if you have to buy another house, then
you've got some time constraints.
That's this video or another video that's coming. So.
That's right. So you go to the lawyer?
So when you're at the lawyer's office, usually it's just a quick meeting. If you've moved out of town, you'll have to kind of sign proxy at a different lawyer's office, but still working with a law firm that's here in Calgary. And you should bring 2 pieces of ID, and you'll have to sign everything up. And then the lawyer, on the date of possession, the funds will get transferred into your account, usually around noon. That's what our contract states. But occasionally, if there's a hiccup in the closing, it might be a little bit later. Once the funds get transferred into your lawyer's account, they will pay out anything that's been registered on title and commissions and anything else that's been instructed. And then you'll get a notification that you get money. you'll get your proceeds.
Sweet.
So that's typically done via, I think now it's deposited, e-deposit.
I think so.
Mostly,
Yeah,
or they'll call you and say a check is ready, but I'm pretty sure nowadays you should see an e-deposit.
It does happen pretty quickly. One thing a lot of sellers think is that the money's going to be in there the day of closing. That doesn't always happen. There are payouts that have to be made. So I would say that if you're counting on money, expect it within probably 5 to 6 days, just as a worst case scenario. That way you can plan your life and know that everything should be okay in that time frame.
Absolutely.
So day of possession. Actually, I lied. Let's move back. The day before possession. On most contracts, and I want to say 99.9% of the ones we see, the buyer wants to do a walkthrough the day before possession, and they want to make sure that everything that was on the contract is in the house and done. So one of the things I recommend is that you try and leave the house the way you would like to find it.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people get anxious and they're ready to close it up and they just want to be done, and they don't always leave their house in the greatest state, and I think that's a real disservice to your buyer.
I personally moved into a house once that smelled like beer. It had beer spilt all. I think they must have had like a moving out party the night before. And there was beer all in the carpets, and it was horrible. And I was 6 months pregnant, and
not good.
I was crying. We moved 2 years later.
Yeah, and that's the way it is, right? So try and remember at some point you're going to be the buyer. How would you like to find your home? I think that's really important. Remember to leave the keys. Maybe if you've got a mailbox that you've got to walk to, location of mailbox is actually really important. And if there's any special instructions you think a buyer would want to know, that's a great way to leave the house and a great, I think, bit of karma for the new people. So we recommend that the day before possession, they do the walkthrough, make it simple. That makes things easy for the closing because obviously then they know everything's good and there should be no hiccups on the day of possession. Oh, that's actually a good idea. Stay tuned. Maybe
What was
next
the
Monday.
other thing we forgot?
I think that's step number 6. I don't know. Or 7.
102. It'll feel like it.
Did you say bumps and closing?
Bumps. Like,
I thought you said bums and closing.
well, there's lots
That's okay. You want to see a thumbs up? Oh no, I want this one.